Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good morning and welcome into a Life Planning 101 this December morning of 2024. Can you believe it? December 2024. It feels like yesterday we were just bringing in the new year. And here we are. But I will say, I just love seeing the joy this time of year. My favorite's been a little truck that's been running around town. It's a utility truck, with the little poles on the back. It's got the Christmas lights and it just makes me smile. And it seems like people are always just a little bit happier. And I think it's really because people do a little bit more giving this time of year. And, after all, we did get the greatest gift of all time, Jesus Christ. And so that is the season, is to be giving back. And so I would think it would be amiss for us not to talk about giving and how you can give more this time of year, because I do believe a lot of people want to do that. They just simply don't know how. Now, albeit that might be the exception of this one gentleman. He's sitting in church and he's just complaining about everything. He said, the music's too loud, the sermon's too long. Obviously, he must not have the joy of the Christmas season in his heart. Church announcements unclear. Everything's hot in the building. I'm uncomfortable. People are unfriendly. He continues to just go on and on about all this complaining, everything. And his son looks up at him and says, "But Dad, you've got to admit, this wasn't a bad show for just $1." So if you're not that person, if you're the person that says, I really would like to give more, I'm just not sure that I can do it, then this is the Life Planning 101 episode for you. And by the way, we've got a tremendous library. If you go onto our website, www.kennedy-financial.com, over the years, we have done a significant amount of literature regarding charitable gifting and maximizing that. It is one of the 8 life planning issues that we focus on, because something that we always say is what's important to you is what's important to us. And usually that boils down to, a few things in life. And that's usually people's family, the causes that are very important to them in life, and their business. And of course, I did leave probably the most important out of that is their faith, but that's usually the order of things. And so I think it'd be amiss for us not to look at that. And also from the pure tax standpoint of charitable gifting. And I think people don't really know what they don't know. You may know that you get a deduction when you make a charitable gift, and that's the extent of it. And I know, we've worked with nonprofits over the years to help them teach their donors how to give more. And the way that, we've helped them teach their donors on how to give more is not really to empty their own pockets where they're feeling like they have less and less, but actually, take that money they would normally be giving to Uncle Sam and figuring out how to way to redirect it to that nonprofit, to that charity. And so I think it's really important for people to realize that you don't know when it comes to your charitable giving. And if you are wanting to give more, if there is something that's important to your heart and you want to be able to put more into that cause, you need to be asking about it. You need to be seeing what you can do about it. As I was thinking about this show, I was thinking about that saying, "We have ways," because my mom would always say that, "We have ways." And I was like, I wonder where that came from. So I actually looked it up. There's a podcast of these two guys, their World War II podcast, and it's "We Have Ways of Making Men Talk." It kind of cracked me up, but it reminded me of a cartoon I saw many years ago. It said, "We have ways of making you talk, but we don't have ways of making you a better listener." And that's a more important life skill. So the point is that, yes, we may be busy this time of year and we're just running. We maybe charity's not that high of priority on my list. But what the funny thing is that taxes aren't they? All right. When April comes around, or, that quarterly payment comes up that you have to make, or October comes around, you're certainly thinking about things then. So here we are, the end of the year, and we're closing out a tax year. And I think this is also a very good opportunity to reflect on your charitable inclinations as well, because they can go hand in hand. And after all, if there is those causes that you're wanting to be able to give more to, it's something to think about. Well, if I could give more to him and I could use the money that I'm going to be giving Uncle Sam, is that how that works? Well, the short answer is not exactly. In fact, it's extremely complicated because if you give money to Uncle Sam, oftentimes you just get a deduction, and that's an itemized deduction. So you might not even get it if you do it that way. But there are, as we stated, we have ways of being able to look at different things. So I think that's really important that you're at least asking the question, taking time to ask the question, how can I give more? Here's what I want to do. And if you have a holistic life planner, they should be able to help you with it. If you don't, obviously, that's what we do. And it needs to be holistic because if someone can't see your full situation, if they don't know what you've got going on, then they certainly can't help you figure out how to maximize the gifts to others. If you've listened to any of our Life Planning 101 podcasts, we talk about the 3 buckets, right? We have your lifestyle bucket. You want to stuff and overstuff that bucket. So you make sure that you have plenty of income, plenty of resources to be able to take care of your lifetime. And you do not want to even remotely worry about that bucket running out of money. And then you have a second bucket that's called your contingency bucket. It's your backup plan. Something goes wrong in that first bucket. Maybe there's a premature death or an illness that impacts your family, whatever it is, that this is a bucket that it's a backup plan. So if something goes wrong, there's money there. And I always talk to people, when you have those 2 buckets full in the way that they need to be full, then you still have money left. If you still have money left, there's a third bucket. And that bucket is for someone else or something else. And so if it's for someone else or something else, shouldn't you want to know how to maximize that dollar? I mean, obviously you want to maximize the first $2, but what about the last one, right? And I think it's important that we think about our money. We talk about mental accounting. I have this account for this and I have this account for this, but we don't put it actually in your life's buckets. And you need a mental account with your life's buckets in mind. And someone needs to be able to help you see that picture fully so you understand what you're dealing with. Because sometimes with, like, for example, a charity, you could end up having something that supports your lifestyle, but ultimately ends up in that last bucket when you pass away. And instead of going to Uncle Sam, it's going to you or going to your favorite cause, right? But it took care of you during your lifetime. So you didn't put your own lifestyle at risk. So these are very complex things when it gets into what we call donor-centric gifts. If we were talking to a nonprofit, that's what we talk to them about, is that they're out there soliciting their gifts, and you're making your little checks out at the end of the year. And some of you are making major gifts to your universities or your churches or, something. They're putting together a building and you want to write a big check, or you make a commitment to write a big check and you make this major gift. But what we help people learn about is what's called a donor-centric gift, meaning it actually benefits the donor. It benefits you and it benefits the nonprofit that you're talking about. So when we come back on Life Planning 101, I'm going to say this. If you have any charitable inclinations or really, and I often argue this, like I'm like, okay, you may not be charitably inclined at all, but I think you're amiss not to at least look at charitable planning if Uncle Sam is getting a piece of the pie. And if it makes sense in that regard, you might want to consider, saying, okay, is there something out there that we can support? I'd rather have that than Uncle Sam. And maybe you want to give it to the government. If you want to give it to the government, go right ahead. I mean, I have actually had people say that too, that my dues, I want to pay my dues. So whatever works for you. But ultimately, I think the important thing is to know what you didn't know before. And that is, we have ways to help you be able to give more. You just have to ask the question. So when we come back right here on Life Planning 101, how do I give more to the nonprofits that I care about? Welcome back into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services out of the big, roaring town of Eastland, Texas, where we help people live life on purpose. What does that mean? Well, as simple as it sounds. What does that mean for you? Once it means for you, then we figure out how to help you do it. And we use 8 life planning issues to help you do it. And today we're discussing one of those life planning issues. It is charitable giving. Sometimes people have something so heavy on their heart, they just want to give as much as they can. They just don't know how. They feel they can't give more because it could impact their lifestyle, or they don't want to disinherit their kids. And ultimately, they don't think that they can give more. And ultimately, they don't even ask how they could give more. Whew. That's something that you really need to be considering, is asking how. Because if you don't ask, my mom always told me the answer is no. If you don't ask, right? And that's true. You just don't know what you don't know. And I think it's extremely important that you're at least able to find out. It reminds me of these 2 men. They're, on this island, and they don't know how they're going to get off the island. One of the guys is pacing back and forth, and he's worried, he's scared, and the other man is just sitting back. He's enjoying the sun. He's like, this is great. The first man asks the second man, aren't you afraid we're just going to die here? He says, well, no. I make $100,000 a week tithe to my church. My pastor is going to find me, right? So, you know what? I feel like that should actually be about Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is going to find me if I'm paying enough taxes. That's for sure. But that is the, reality, is that the reality isn't often the reality. Donors can give more oftentimes, and they can do it oftentimes without being a risk to their lifestyle or being a risk to disinheriting their children, their grandchildren, or whomever they're wanting to support when they pass away. They simply just don't know what they don't know. So what I want you to think about, we're going to begin, I think, to explain this a little easier, we're going to begin with the end in mind, and that's when you're dead. So your end in mind, that's when you're dead. And that's your finances at your death. And I want you to think about, when you die, you may not know this, you actually get to choose who your beneficiaries are of your estate to a big extent. You have 3 choices of the types of beneficiaries that these are. Number 1 is people. That's your children, your grandchildren, other family, friends, etc. Number 2 is nonprofit organizations. Okay, so like your churches, your charities, or even otherwise. I mean, the local fire department might not be a nonprofit in some cases, or your chamber, or things like that. Number 3 is Uncle Sam. That's the IRS, the government. I should say governments, because states are often related in that too. So did you know that you get to choose which of these 3 are in your estate plan for the most part? For example, okay, let's say that you have a retirement account, like an IRA, and it's substantial. Well, a few years ago, we got this new law. I say a few years ago, my gosh, it's been like half a decade now, called SCURE Act. And what that stated was that if you are an IRA owner and you pass away with that IRA and it doesn't go to your spouse, and it's going to, your kids or your grandkids, they're going to have 5 or 10 years, depending on how you have that beneficiary listed, to be able to distribute that money out of that IRA. Okay, well, when they go to do that, that money that comes out is considered ordinary income on your tax return. It's taxed as ordinary income. So let's just assume that you have a very successful daughter. Her and her husband, they're making a healthy 6-figure income a year, and you pass away. And now they've got a 7-figure IRA that they have to pull out over 5 years or 10 years. And it adds another 6 figures on top of their current 6 figures on their tax return. We're in a progressive tax system. Yes, that means the higher your income is, the higher your tax rate is. So how would you like it if over 30% or over 40%, or in some states 50%, of that retirement account ultimately went to Uncle Sam? I am betting that you don't like it. That's just a hunch, right? So what if I told you that you could structure this, that your family could actually receive more? Uncle Sam could receive less to really less. And you could even add a beneficiary. That cause you hold dear to your heart. Yes. Very, very doable. Actually pretty simple to do. But you have to ask the question. That's the key. That's the key. Secondly, let's talk about your estate itself. So if your success is big enough, if you've done well, if you've inherited well and done well, it's even worse. But if you've done well yourself, you may be looking at an estate tax bill when you pass away. And it's no joke. It's like that island. Uncle Sam's going to find you. And he's going to want a piece when you die. If you're stranded on that island, brings a whole new light into that. But there are a multitude of ways to help mitigate this. But often people still have something that they're subject to this tax when they die. So, example, we've been working with several families over the last couple of years just because of this big sunset that's going to be happening in 2026 that we've been talking about consistently on Life Planning 101 with people's estate planning and their estate tax planning. And there's so many ways that you can get money out of your estate. But the biggest thing about that is that when you get all that done, you may still have something left. And that something could be taxed at 40% or higher in some states. Well, if that's the case, what if you just gave that something to that cause? Huh? I mean, heck, what if that went to that cause? Have you thought about that? A lot of people say, well, that's my home. Well, you could have some kind of swap powers with your trust and be able to donate cash versus your home. You do all kinds of things, but it's about asking the question. That's the most important part. How can I give more? So we hope to answer that question when we come back. You're not going to want to miss it right here on Life Planning 101. Welcome back into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services, where we're helping people live life on purpose. And today we're helping people give more on purpose. And I got another funny story from Vanco Payments. A farmer lives in an Irish countryside. He has a pet dog that he loves so dearly. And of course, like all dogs, this dog decided to up and leave and go to heaven one day. And the farmer went to the parish priest and he inquired if a mass could be held for this pet. And the father told him, no, we can't have services for an animal in the church. But I'll tell you what, there's some new denomination down the road and no telling what they're believing in, but they may do something like that. You may go ask them. And the farmer said, well, thank you. I'll do that right away. By the way, do you think that a $50,000 donation is enough for such a service like that? And the father replied, well, why didn't you tell me the dog was Catholic? Oh, yes. I think it's interesting that everybody's motivated by the almighty dollar. And yet it's also something that if you are a man or a woman of faith, you want to put it in perspective and keep it in perspective. And that's what we're talking about right here is, we have in our hearts that we want to do one thing and then we're struggling with how to do it because we don't want to put our own lifestyle at risk. We don't want to put our children's lifestyle at risk by disinheriting them. So how can we do it all? And I think it's often in the question. It's not the answer. It's often in the question and making sure that you've got somebody that can help you filter through that. We've talked about some incredible ways to be able to do that when you pass away, if you've got retirement money or estate tax and you're looking at that. So I'm going to bring it back. We're going to be here in the present. You're actually here and breathing. You're not dead anymore. If you missed the first part of the show, you were dead. But if you're successful, I think this is a good way for you to think about things. There's a good chance that, you're fighting every single year to not pay Uncle Sam. And what can you do to be accomplishing that goal? is your favorite cause a possible remedy for some of that? And perhaps even helping you keep a little bit more in your pocket. And I think that's the question that you need to be asking. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, someone's going to have to help you look at your things holistically, because they can't answer that question if they really don't understand what those lifestyle buckets need to be. If you've missed the first part of the show, you really need to go back and listen to that part, because they need to know how you need to fill in stuff and overstuff that lifestyle bucket, how you need to have that backup plan, and then how you can maximize that last dollar. And they need to see it all to be able to help you do that. But a lot of times the answer is a good one here, because there's so many avenues that you can look at that we can't even explore them all on one Life Planning 101 show. I'm not even sure that we could explore them all on 10 Life Planning 101 shows. That's the good thing. So charitable planning should be on purpose and by design. It's not a one size fits all. You do this, you save money. It's very intricately woven into someone's planning, and it should be treated as such. But it's also to be extremely beneficial to make sure that your dollars are going where you want them to go. Do you want them to be going to Uncle Sam, or do you want them to be going to your favorite charity? Do you want them to be paying for things that you get upset with Washington about, or do you want them to be going to something that you care about? And if you want that, you need to be asking the question. So I hope I've given you a good goal for the day, and that's ask the question, right? Because that is the only way that you're going to figure out if you can actually give more. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services out of Eastland, Texas. It is December 2024. Merry Christmas. I tell you what, we pray all the time for protection over the families that we serve, and that you're blessed and you're filled with just abundance of joy and peace. And in this season especially, I know it's a rough season for a lot of people, but one of the things that I know heals a heart is giving. So make it a point. Ask, how can you give more? And join us right here next week on Life Planning 101. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.